Hi Paimarats and welcome to the introduction video to percentages. As always, properly commented and interactive notebook can be found in the links in the video description. Let's do it. Percentage is another way to talk about ratios or fractions. Let's think about apples first, as always, right? You have 10 apples at the beginning and you ate 5 of them. When I tried to write it, I ate 5 out of 10. When you run the cell, you will see the obvious result: you ate 1/2 of your apples. Now, if we call the 10 apples the total amount, it is also 100% of our apples. And when you ate 1/2 of 100%, that is 50%. And the other half, other 50%, you are left with. Percentage is therefore a ratio or fraction multiplied by 100. So to write it again, 5 out of 10, and now I multiply by 100 and I get 50%. Next, you buy 10 more apples. First question for you: what percentage do you have in respect to the initial 10 apples? So you have currently 5 apples. Let's put into bracket. We added 10 more and we are comparing it to initial 10 apples. And then again, I want to have it in percentages, so I multiply by 100. And there you go, you have now 150% of your initial amount. You can, however, ask yourself a second question. How many percents of apples did you add to the 5 once you have bought the additional 10 apples? So you added 10 apples, but now you want to compare it to the 5 you started from. Expressed in percents, again multiplied by 100. And here we go, you have added 200% of apples. The bottom line you really need to remember is always asking yourself, percentage in respect to what initial value? The initial value is the one which goes into the denominator, and it can change depending on the question you are asked. In other words, as with the fractions, to figure out the percentage, you need to know both numerator and the denominator. Now you know all the essentials, so if I give you any two numbers, you are able to calculate what is the percentage of one in respect to the other. Let's take two random numbers, 123 and 1230. So one ratio is 123 divided by 1230, and we want it in percent, so I multiply by 100. Running the cell, and we see that you get 10%. However, we can also do it other way around, right? I can take 1230 and divide by 123, again multiplied by 100, and then I get 1000%, which means that 1230 is 1000% of 123, therefore 1000% means 10 times more. Now another question. If you start from 123, how many percent do you need to add or grow in order to reach 1230? Basically, I need to compare the difference to the initial value. Yes, the initial value, which is always the denominator. So my difference is 1230 minus 123, and I want to compare it to initial value 123, and on top of it I want it in percent times 100, and I'm getting 900. So the necessary growth from 123 to 1230 is 900%. You can, however, think in a different way as well. You can consider that 1230 corresponds to 1000%, and 123 corresponds to 100%, which was your initial total. So therefore the growth is final minus initial, that is 1000 minus 100, and that gives you also 900% of the growth. So far we were trying to figure out from given fraction what is the percentage. Sometimes you of course need to go opposite way, from percentage to fraction. So if I give you 40%, the easiest way to figure out what is the fraction is to write into the numerator 40 and into the denominator 100. This is already a correct fraction, which you might be able to simplify further. Now we are going to solve two short examples which should serve you as some kind of warning when calculating percentages. Imagine you have 1000 money and I will make you an offer which you cannot reject. First, I give you 10% of the money you have, and afterwards you give me 10% of what you will have. And as a thank you, I give you 5 money as a reward. Do we have a deal? Since you might not be exactly sure, let's calculate it together. So in the first step, I write step 1, I will give you 10%. So that is 1000 plus 10% of 1000, which is 1000 divided by 10. And we also print what is our step 1 value, and that will be 1100. So you have 1100 money. Well done. In step 2, you will give me 10% of what you have. So that is step 1 minus step 1 divided by 10, right? And we again print value of step 2. Now you end up with only 990 money. In the final step 3, I reward you with 5 money. So I can print right away step 2 plus 5, which prints 995. So 5 money doesn't compensate for the trade, and you shouldn't also accept it. Example number 2 goes like this. In January, you lose 50% of your Instagram followers. But for the rest of the year, you will regain 5% of followers every month. The question is, are you going to have more followers at the end of the year than you had on 1st of January, before you lost the 50%? Naively thinking, we can notice that 11 months and growth by 5% will give me 55. So I can argue that 50 plus those 55 is 105%. I should have more followers than in the beginning. Alternatively, you can think, alright, 5%, but only from the half. So it is basically not 5%, but 2.5% growth. So then I have 2.5 times 11, and then I do plus 50, my starting point, and I end up only with 77.5% of followers compared to the initial of my year. To decide which one it is, let's calculate it properly. In the beginning of February, I have 0.5, meaning 50% of my followers, and by the end of the month, I will gain 5% of that value. So I can multiply by 1.05. The 5 is the 5% extra, so 105% of my initial value. I will have 52.5% of followers. According to what is called compound interest, I can put all the 11 gains together in the following manner. I start from value 0.5, 50%, that we already know, and I'm multiplying by 1.05, 105% of the initial value, and I need to do it 11 times, which translates into power of 11. So that puts together the operation of 11 times multiplying the current value by 1.05. Finally, you want to express it in percent, so I need to multiply by 100. Surprise, surprise, I end up with 85% of followers. So by the end of the year, I have 85% of followers compared to my peak value on the 1st of January. That is somewhere between our naive predictions of 105 and 77.5. So the compound interest causes better than the pessimistic ratio of 77.5, because every month I am growing the 5% from a little bit larger total than in the previous month. However, much lower than 105%, because the 5% growth has really started from 50% of my followers and not from 100%. So basically I am growing really 2.5%. So the catch again is which initial amount I need to refer to. This is all for now. If you want some additional questions or you are interested in looking into properly commented notebook, all the links are in the descriptions. Cheers!